Call this April 2nd Brown County Commission meeting to order.
Commissioner Weeks, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. First item on our agenda, we have Gene Letsky, Director of Equalization, Annual Equalization Director Conference.
Okay.
Good morning.
Sounds ominous.
It does. It's a meeting required in statute, 10-3-14, annual conference of commissioners, in reference to the performance of the director's duties. It's one of those things they ask me about every year at audit, or they ask the director about it at audit as to whether I had the meeting, so here I am. You guys have seen a lot of me last year, way more than I'm comfortable with, so now here we go. As far as what we got going on, assessment notices were out first of March. We really expected a big onslaught of appeals. There hasn't been nearly the onslaught that I expected. I think we did a pretty decent job of getting out and letting people know what to expect, what's coming, and I think it's been fairly quiet. I think we'll be able to get through it a lot easier than I had planned. We'll meet as an equalization board on the 9th. In the morning, it'll be to organize. We'll get rid of our regular stuff, our exempts, our tax freezes, that kind of thing right away. And we'll meet again as a county board on the 16th in the afternoon. I do have a few things that have come up. I know we changed non-ag small acreages a distance from town and quite a ways out, and I expected to hear from them, and I have. That's kind of come to fruition, and that's also one of the reasons we raise farmhouses, because one of the things I'm hearing about small acreages, the distance from town, is that we're raising these and haven't raised farmhouses. And as an equalization board, you'll get to hear some of that discussion on the 16th. My consolidated board also has to meet on the 9th. We will meet the afternoon of the 9th to organize. I think we're going to get them done in possibly just one meeting the way it looks. We were expecting probably more residential appeals than we got. Typically residential appeals come right away when the notices go out, right away about the 1st of March. Some of the bigger ones come way later in the appeal process, and actually the last day to appeal is today. So we are going to skip the 16th on consolidated. We'll meet on the 23rd, and hopefully by then maybe we'll have whittled some of those appeals down. We do have some commercial appeals, probably the first time in a long time, and we have made some stipulations. We have had some withdraw after we've had a chance to talk to them, and we may still end up hearing a few of them on the 16th, or on the 23rd. If not, if we can get them all taken care of, we might be able to get consolidated equalization done in one day. County, again on the 16th, we're going to have some disputed things. We're going to have to take an action on those settlement cases. I'm still waiting for Chris to see how that's going to go. And yeah, equalization is going to go pretty good. Some things coming up this summer. Senate Bill 4 passed, so we look like we're in line to be in one of the pilot counties. They want to look at our soil survey as we have it, our soil survey with no adjustments, current soil survey with no adjustments, soil survey with most probable use, and soil survey with actual use, and try to run those four things kind of simultaneously, see where see what we have to report to revenue by the end of the year. At this point, other than the fact that I know we're involved in it and it's passed, I haven't really been given a lot of information as to how we're going to end up going about it. I haven't gotten any forms, any layers, any of that stuff yet. IT seems to be pretty aware of that we're going to need some test programs. Scott Madsen at GIS is pretty aware. Our end is pretty much good to go. Just a matter of when revenue gets us their layers. Some of the other things that came up in legislation this year, Senate Bill 112 failed, but that was kind of an actual use bill. It said that if property, grassland, or cropland was planted or in natural grass for the last 30 years, we could assess it as natural or native grass. To a little bit of an extent, we kind of do some of that anyway, not really at actual use, but we look at highest and best use. Again, I kind of feel that highest and best use for parcels not always the same as that of its components. We're kind of a lone wolf in that theory here, and really have to arm wrestle with Department of Revenue to get that across. And when these legislations fail, that kind of hurts us a little bit more all the time. Senate Bill 183 failed. That particularly talked about trees and shelter belts and things like that along with the buffer strip zones and that kind of thing to give trees a reduction. I know we've had a lot of local boards and things try to give us try to make recommendations for trees to be an obstruction as far as assessments have reduced value. We've done some of that. I'm still of the belief that trees are an obstruction if they're naturally occurring. Shelter belts, things like that, building sites, those kinds of things, I'm not real inclined to give a reduction for them cropland not being in cropland use. Again, I think it's not right to create your own obstruction and still get a tax reduction for it. I think if God put it there, it's a good natural or a good obstruction. If not, we'll talk about that later. We'll get into that again a little bit at county boards. As far as everything else on my end, I think we've established a pretty good relationship with the other offices in this side of the courthouse over this year. We had some headaches replacing a position in my office. I think we're at a new hire again that we're good to go, and we'll be back to up and running at full strength again. Other than that, I guess this is your guys' perception as to our office's performance over the last year is what the meeting's about. I think we've done fairly good. We've been had a lot of communication with the commissioners, and I think it's been active. We got a lot of stuff going on. I think we've had a pretty good rapport with our local boards. I think there again with you folks, I think our office has done fairly well, and I think we've kind of reestablished some good working relationships with the other offices on this end of the courthouse.
Got a lot to deal with. You're doing really good. No complaints.
Probably if there'll be appeals, probably more likely that they could show up next year when...
After the tax bills go out.
That's right.
Yep.
So I would think that with everything that went on this year, people are kind of settled a little bit with what has happened and probably not positioned to appeal, whereas next year, I would think that if there's going to be appeals, it'll come more evident next year.
We'll see the effects.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So,
Well, it continues to be a very dynamic situation with the valuation and what the legislature and the state chooses to do with things, especially when it comes to valuing ag land, and I think we're a long way from kind of an end to that.
Yep, and to that end too, even with this pilot study, it's kind of, you know, I was kind of expecting things to be kind of up and running a little faster than they seem to be. The way it's looking, it probably at least be the 1st of June before we start to get numbers to start working with, and they're hoping to have some results back, you know, fairly early in the fall. I'm not real sure if what we have to meet the workload, we're probably better suited than 60 other counties in the state to do it, but it's going to be, there's a lot on the plate right there. So
I think they're a little overly optimistic about how quickly this information is going to turn and what we're going to get out of it. They've got some projections on things. I think as this, you know, continues to evolve, it's really important that people know and understand, which a lot of people have taken advantage of, is communications. If they've got questions, concerns, not quite sure about where we're at, you know, with the way the law is currently being interpreted and how it applies, where they're at when it comes to comparables and things like that. Your office is always open, very approachable, and open and honest with, you know, all of the citizens about what they can expect and what the methodology is that's being used with those kinds of things. I don't know that we have, you know, there has been in the past some reluctance on some people's part, you know, to say, well, I don't want somebody coming and checking and stuff, and you know, it's not, you get the idea that, you know, well, they just want to raise my taxes. Like, no, you guys just want to get it right, and we've had a number of those cases where somebody who's initially been a little reluctant, where it's actually been to their benefit. So, you know, if we actually find out what the circumstances are and get it right, you have to make some assumptions with information you don't know if you don't have access to, and you come to find out that, you know, really, you know, for instance, the condition of a particular building or something like that isn't up to quite what you think or what it looks like from the street. You actually get in and start doing an actual assessment, and you know, there's more cases than not where you've actually adjusted things down, and so people need to be comfortable that, you know.
And there are, we see a lot of appeals come in after assessment notices come in, or assessment notices go out, and a lot of that gets stipulated or withdrawn, or things after we come out and visit with them, or they come to visit with us to explain why things are that way. That's why, as a county board, you probably aren't going to see very many appeals. A lot of them are handled way before they get to you, and you know, and that seems to, and you know, some that we've reduced, some that we've shown them why it is how it is. Some things like that. We probably have had more discussion on ag land in a long time. All of our records, all of our things have been open all this time. I think a lot of people have taken a lot more time to come in and see how ag land is assessed, where all multipliers all are, how we've adjusted, and some things like that. We've spent a lot of time on the counter with a lot of property owners, a lot of landowners this summer, and I think we've have maybe gained some footing as far as maybe confidence in our office about how we're handling some of that.
How bad is this study now, if Brown County is going to be a part of the bill that was passed in Pier? How bad is that going to load your office down as far as duplicate paperwork or all of that? I mean, have you got the staff, or how's that all going to work out?
Well, we never have the staff.
Yeah, I opened that up for you.
To that end, even revenue wants us to look at every property every 5 years. That's pretty much a pipe dream. That's just not possible with the staff we have. But you know, our numbers are coming in pretty good on the new sales. You know, we're caught up enough that Polly's got November, December, January, February sales versus 19 values in already. That's typically not the case, but you know, we're getting ahead with things that are in DevNet, things that are in the CAMA. We probably were again kind of expecting a lot of appeals, so we kind of are getting a head start on that. I think to that end, we were way more prepared to handle the appeals this year, or the changes. There's still going to be 4,000 assessment changes with this thing coming up on these townships. There was last year also, but we're pretty much ahead of the game. I think Kathy's got letters and everything all ready to go.
Well, we're
and
working on them, but yeah.
kind of knows what's coming, and you know, we're kind of way more prepared for the onslaught of changes. But you know, it's going to be, we're going to have to run, you know, a primary set of books or a live set of books plus 3 extra sets of land value figures. And you know, Paul tells me IT's ready to go with that. All the time, every time we start something new, there's always bugs or something in there, so we'll see how that works out. But you know, we'll be busy.
Well, part of the good thing is some of the foundation that's been laid with, you know, automating as much of this as possible. So when you make adjustments, it's not you have to pull out every card and go manually do figures and things like that. You've got the components there. And I remember from years back, you know, there was initially, if there was some legitimate justification for making adjustments, you know, it was easy just to kind of pick an arbitrary and say, well, I think here's where it ought to be. And I asked and insisted, you know, that we go back and say, well, if it legitimately we should be making an adjustment, rather than saying, okay, here's a number that we're all comfortable with. How would we get to that number? Because there are the variables, especially when it comes to property. Homes is a good example of that, where you've got the multiple factors that go into it. Its relative age, which is, you know, a combination, as you well know, but it's important for other people to know what its original build date is, what its age is, and then its relative age based on updates that have been done to it, plumbing, heating, you know, new roof, those kinds of things. And then its condition, is it well kept or has it been allowed to let go? Quality, you know, is an easy example, is, you know, has it got pine as opposed to oak? Finishing and things like that. And then it's, you know, then the neighborhood factor about, you know, what it's pushed based on, you know, the type of desirability that it has, if it's lakefront property or small acreages or, you know, just a neighborhood and things like that, to actually go back in and use those formulas to make adjustments, to make it fit properly. That way, when you go to make adjustments going forward using the tools that we have, you don't have to go back and touch each one of them individually. You know that those components make sense and that they can be adjusted along with those others that are like properties to do that.
And along those lines, and I know you've been on boards before that have recognized the issue where you know, a lot of times we'll get numbers from a board of equalization that says, let's just put $200,000 on a quarter. Well, that's fine and everything, but I have no way to come up with that number, to reproduce that number with my the factors I have. You know, we may get to $200,000, but I'd prefer to say, you know, let's say there's this many acres that you're not able to get into, or let's say that on a house, you know, maybe it's not in the same condition I want. You know, if you want to go from $75,000 to $50,000 on a house, but I got no way to reproduce that $50,000 with the formulas without making special adjustments for it. You know, maybe the 50, I can come up with a number with my factors that comes to 52 or 49 or something. A lot of times I prefer a number that I can reproduce. And
well, that was why, you know, we preferred, because when you're using those equations to get to it, it would replicate itself when you go the next year. That's what you need to be able to do, is make the components of that equation make sense to get to what you've all agreed is the correct number. So that way, the next year, either if you need to duplicate it as is, or if you need to make adjustments, you are using those components instead of saying, well, this one's another outlier and, you know, we got to start from scratch on it. So.
And you've sat on boards before, and I've seen you come up with that same, you know, you've had that understanding before. Let's come to a number that the equalization office can reproduce using their methodology. But
and so that helps put us in a position to be able to participate in this study efficiently and effectively to do that. The outcome we'll see, but, you know, if that's what they'd like to see is what those comparisons look like, I think it's important that we participate.
Well, I thank you for all you've done. I think your ability to work with the people in taxation, which is not always easy, has been superb, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Your ability to call people down and try to explain what's going on.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for Gene?
Anything else?
I'd like to say we're gonna look forward to it, but...
We're gonna start next week and go from there. And that'll be relatively painless for you guys.
Thank you.
That'll work. Thank you.
Thanks, Gene.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, we have Dirk Rogers, Highway Superintendent, right-of-ways and department update. Are you your cheerful self today?
Morning.
A little better than yesterday.
Are you coming back?
It's a few disagreements, but we got through it.
Morning.
Well, originally, we got some contracts, I'm gonna give those to the auditor's office. They're just the regular contracts that come in for annual bids. And then I had 2 right-of-way occupancies, which when they brought them in, I said, you guys aren't gonna be in there. The snows are full of ditches. The ditches are full of snow. And now the ditches are full of water, so I don't know how soon they're gonna get to these, but I wanna run them through since we have them. They're both for Northern Electric, and it's just a run-in electric service. One of them is right here on Brown County 3. Keeping it right in here. It's just 850 foot in the south ditch. I don't see any problems with it. They're not going to be able to do it if the water's in the ditch or anything's compromised anyway, so I'd recommend that for approval.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kifley, second by Piker, to approve Northern Electric for a right-of-way in the County Road 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Sorry about that. The south one, or this other one's on the south side of Barnard. If anybody's familiar with the intersection with 14 stop signs right on the south side of Barnard, that it cuts right through there on 115th, right at where the Y comes together, right on the south side of town there.
Are they boring? It must be
Yeah,
boring.
that one will be, I didn't look at that other one. This one will be bored because it's going under the road. I didn't see if that one said boring and nice.
Second. Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve Northern Electric, correct? Same
Yep,
company?
same thing. Everything's the
Up
same.
on 115th and the south of Barnard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
They're both gonna be bored. I guess when I was just gonna give you a department update, but when I made the meeting, I had different things to update you about. So, I was gonna kinda do a recap on the winter and talk a little bit about why we can't find parts for 1975 Oshkosh snowblower down at AutoZone, but, we'll come to those things in the near future. I just wanted to visit a little bit about what's going on with the water. Scott's here and he can tell you more in an official capacity. I'm just want to mention a few spots where we're chasing around right now. In the southeast part of the county, that was kind of the first place that got affected. Starting Thursday night and Friday, we started closing a few spots down there, mostly on 21 and 23 stuff. It's the first road segments that are west of 37 and south of Groton. And it's, you know, it's like the drainage right at Fernie is just it's just a friggin' mystery zone in there, depending on which way the wind's blowing and whose water got there first and stuff like that, because you got Tigers and Amston, and then you got the Mud Creek coming down from the north, you got the Mud Creek coming from the south, in this case where it backed up, and then there's other various tributaries in there that are sort of flow depending on who's got the most water that day. So we ended up with kind of a mess down there where it was backing up from the south and coming down from the north, and some local guys helped clean out the road up there along the lake road, which helped spread the water out a lot. And it's hard for some of those guys, but I do appreciate it, because in some cases they're taking water and it's all natural and it's water that comes to them, but they do compromise some of their stuff to accelerate the water moving through, and we do appreciate that they can go and do that stuff. So basically that was the first stuff over around Groton, kind of moving down in a diagonal area through the southeast corner. And then of course the elm got a little squirrely the last few days, and they went up the
the spillway had been frozen over, and it wasn't really allowing the water to come down the normal spillway and holding it back, so the city got in there with an excavator over the weekend and released that, and that'll help move things along, at least got things going the right direction. So now we're kind of seeing that reflected downstream. Got some stuff going on up at Westport, and then we were just visiting. Kendall got a little, talking to Kendall about flooding's a little bit like, you know, if you're on an airplane and there's turbulence, if the stewardess doesn't start freaking out, you don't really need to. If she starts running, then you might want to be concerned. So Kendall called me and said it's about the worst he's ever seen coming over the Tacoma Park Road right now, because the elm's getting held up, and I'm sure it's just dumping back kind of southwest. I don't really know, because that really doesn't drain all the way in and get in the Mog that way. It goes, so it's going to go east and try to get over to the gym. So there's a lot of water along 13 right now, the Rural Hollows place and along in there. So
Is the water going over 13?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, it is?
yeah.
Just a mile east of,
The first spot is just right, like the first quarter mile, and then there's about 2 or 3 spots that's going over there.
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that'll spill down into the Mog then is what it does.
Well, I suppose if it gets high enough, but its first tendency is going to be to go east along the road and try to get over towards where the gym, basically, or where it would be going.
It could get to the Mog.
But yes, if it gets high enough, it'll go over and get in the Mog.
Right. It goes both ways.
Right.
Mhm.
So then there's a spot up on 9, you know, either side of 14. There's a spot on 7, either side of 14. You know, we've got everything out and signed, and we're running around some more today. We thought we might have some trouble north of Hecla, but some of that stuff opened up, and that's a lot of it is just the timing of when stuff's melting enough to get open and go from there. So. But that's kind of where we're at with stuff. We're just going to continue to monitor it and see, you know, the other spots where sounds like we got to get some more water coming in a little bit further north between Claremont and Groton, and of course some stuff's coming into the southwest part of the county too, so.
What's the depth of the spillway overflow at the Willow?
I don't know, we can't get back in there yet. The feed coming into Willow, though, yesterday, west of the Willow Dam, when I was up there, had dropped from the morning. I was up there about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and it had dropped about 5 inches. So I'm hoping the water coming into Willow is starting to slow up too.
Talked to my little brother yesterday afternoon, and he said that most of his gullies and stuff are 10 feet deep with snow up northwest of Leola, and that there's still snow a foot above the top row of bales, and when that all lets go towards the end of the week, the Willow will get more.
Yep. We're you know, the temperature's supposed to be up pretty high, so we're expecting another push this weekend, first part of next week. The problem we got right now is there's so much ice and snow in the river channel that it's becoming a cork. So, you know, we saw it at Ordway last night. That's what's pushing the stuff over, you know, County 13. The gauge went skyrocket because of a jam. The jam broke loose. The gauge leveled back off. So, you know, it pushed water towards, like I said, towards Dirk's Roads. We're just playing leapfrog with the water. The head of the water is it's getting to these icy spots, and all the snow. In all my years, I've never seen snow hold back water like it is this year. And until we get enough push behind it, it's
Yeah, we just have these little
going out of its
surges.
banks, and then it moves on, and you know, then we get to the next spot. So, you know, we're monitoring it the best we can to give people the heads up. You know, we got drones and stuff out this morning trying to get to places that we can't get to by foot or by car. But yeah, right now, like I said, the ice in the riverbeds and the creeks and stuff is just creating absolute havoc. And I don't know what we can do about it. I mean, we pushed some water or some ice at Westport yesterday to help those folks, but again, it just went downstream to an area we couldn't get to with an excavator, and here we sit. So, yeah, we're kind of in a monitor mode right now.
And I'm only talking specific to the county roads. I mean, anytime you go and there's a county closure, I'm guessing every township road around there that isn't a main deal or been built up, they're all struggling, you know, significantly too. So
It's a lot more than just what I'm talking about, but that's kind of what I worry about first. And then,
You'll probably need a sign on the north bridge of Westport on 10.
yeah, we got someone that's kind of up watching that today, and
It's about 3 inches from covering the road up, so they'll need a sign to block that off.
okay.
And there isn't anything you're gonna do there, because I mean, the bridges are all full all the way down to 11, all the way to Gunderson. I mean, they're full on both sides. I mean, it's not gonna flow any further.
We are, Dirk gave me an update this morning, we are working to get a county road map out on our website, so that hopefully will help people avoid some of these issues. I'll get that going as soon as I get back to the office. Hopefully we can have that on by this afternoon. The township roads, again, there's so many, there's not enough employees in Brown County to make that happen, so people are just going to have to use caution. We've got measures in place with communications to, if we do have to go out in the county on an ambulance call or something, that we're getting information, you know, as much as we can from the caller to get us in the right way or the wrong, whatever way we can, I should say, so.
Message to the public, don't drive through running water.
Yeah, and there's various, I mean, we can't sit there and try to stratify what level of closure it is. If there's water over the road, there's gonna be a sign out there. If there's an absolute defect where something washes out, then we'll get more aggressive, but the general public's gotta take a little bit of responsibility here to, use a little bit of common sense, you know.
Vote for the day.
And if it's not signed, give us a call
Yep.
politely at the highway department, let us know, because this stuff does change very quickly.
No, and we've done, hasn't been the most streamlined communication, but we're definitely getting contacted from a variety of sources when something happens, so. All right?
Very good.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
Have a good day.
I'm gonna stay around for the rest of the discussion.
This will pass.
Oh, yeah.
Is it on my knee?
Yeah.
We don't have any other agenda items, but I believe the city and the airport are here to discuss some issues.
Yep, come on in. Morning, how are you, Lynn?
Did Gary kind of indicate why we were here today?
Yes,
I made a copy of the agreement,
Yep, got a copy of that.
and I have with me Michael Smith, which is the Homes Engineering, Rich Krokel is our Transportation Director, and then you know Robin.
Robin.
And as part of the procedural process within the agreement, we're here today to inform you that the airport needs to utilize this high-volume pump under a controlled environment. And Rich and Robin can explain the suggested plan when we talk about controlled environment. And we need to do this fairly soon for airport safety reasons. And with that, Rich, you want to kind of explain what you have in mind?
Yep, what I'm planning on doing is pumping between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. That'd be 330,000 gallons an hour. 8 hours would be 2,400,000 gallons. I want to do this at night while the temperatures are low outside to reduce the impact through the Moccasin Creek watershed. Currently, we've got a wildlife problem. Our pond is between two runways, and we've got about anywhere between 4,000 and 6,000 geese sitting on that pond. So we have to haze those geese off of there, and we have to be careful when we do it, of course, and we just need to get rid of that water.
So you've been holding it till now.
I think something actually broke loose, you know, within the piping system. It thawed out, and it pretty much filled up in about 3 days, 2.5 days.
I think that's the problem with, you know, all those inlets, everything's out in the field portions, it's not removed with snow, you know, they don't have access to them, so. I think I heard Scott talking about, you know, water or snow and ice holding water back this year. I think that was a primary case where everything was melting, the water was getting built up, just those inlets did not bust through, and then they came through at one time and just, poof, it came up. You know, and we still have capacity out there. You know, we're not at full capacity for storage. It's not the issue, it's the wildlife issue that's driving us.
And I think 4 or 5 nights of pumping will get us down to a level that's not going to be conducive to attracting wildlife. We don't need that basin dry by any means. We need to get it down to about 12 to 18 inches. Those geese aren't going to find that desirable.
And your footprint, the way that pond's designed, you know, it's not just a flat bottom, it's got slope to it, so you start getting it down, you'll reduce that cross-sectional area of coverage of water as well, so.
We're talking about a controlled release, and part of the issue right now is just the fact that you're at the beginning of the migration, and it's attractive looking.
Right. And the stars align for everything to be a problem, exactly.
The other thing that probably should be brought up is that this is, we're going to lose our opportunity here pretty soon. We're not going to have freezing at night, and then we're going to start seeing that runoff continue more at night. So if we can get started with this and get things going a little bit, help the airport out, we may be able to beat some of the additional runoff that you're going to see. Foot Creek is dropping off a little bit. Some of these things have crested already, but we'd like to get this while freezing temperatures are still available at night.
Did you say it was 330 gallons per hour?
Correct.
From 9 to 5?
From 9 to 5.
For 4 to 5 nights?
4 to 5 nights.
So is there any potential for water over any of the township roads down in that area? And in the intersection there by where Harlan and Donnie Young live, I know there's a potential there for water going over the road, and I just wondered at what level is that? Has it been going up or down, or how have these ice jams affected the flow in there? I wonder what's going on there.
I haven't been that way. When I came in, I came up 281, which I just haven't had time to run and look at all this stuff with the cows and all this situation also. The mog's full everywhere, like from what I could see, and that's changed a heck of a lot in the last, we'll just say weeks, since I probably have come to town and seen anything there. And I know, like even just at my house there, just these sloughs are going by, like these guys said, it goes from, it don't look like it's even going to be an issue to over the road, and township stuff, like, you know, might not be nothing in my house. Talk to the guy northwest of you a mile, that's over the road. Has anybody called you? No, and you go look, and I met the mailman there actually, and I don't know if it's anything, it's all townships are all in the same thing. He said there's 17 spots he drove through the water. He's about halfway through his route, and it sounds to me like there's a lot of water north coming, and I guess I just feel like this is going to add to the problem if we turn the big pump on. His little pump's running right now, I assume, right?
Yep.
And isn't in that agreement, doesn't it say if the mog is out of the banks, this big pump won't be utilized, I think?
It actually
I understand you probably gotta get rid of it. There's goose hunters driving all over wrecking these roads, maybe have them come to the airport for a few hours, and they'll stay off the township roads, and they'll get rid of the geese. It seems like a win for all of us.
Well, I think the geese got more rights than the cows have got.
Oh, absolutely they do. And like they don't, like I'm gonna be on an island, Darwin's gonna be on an island pretty soon, and we're all, you know, it just gets frustrating to keep seeing more, like when we had all these arguments back then, low drops in a 5-gallon bucket, and the bucket's full, and there's no more buckets. And that's what gets very frustrating for all of us, and very expensive, because the way it looks like every east-west township road we have should be underwater in another, I don't know, week. Just, it'd be way worse than I guess I anticipated it ever being with as dry as it's been. Really filling up quick, but it's ice jams, snow jams, and stuff ain't quite releasing how it should, and there's a lot more water coming. Yep.
136th Street last night was probably a foot to 18 inches above the water, and that was at 7 o'clock this morning when I came in. Water was going across the road, and right west of the highway it was washing out. The road was washing
Where's this
out.
at? Where?
3 miles south of Highway 12 on 281, just on the west side of 281. So you must have some water break loose up by the landfill area. because that water comes down through there. I've never seen that road wash out. Water would go across in the past 70-some years, but I've never seen it wash out. But this morning, if I drove on the north half of the road, I could avoid the ruts, but it's going across pretty fast there. And, by the time I go home this afternoon, who knows? We've got way too much water coming from watersheds that should not be coming through that area. As an example, the watershed, or the water area that comes around the landfill, that should not come down through there. It does, because it comes, hits the railroad tracks, I don't know which, about a mile east of 6, and then I think several years ago the county dug or gave permission to dig on the north side of the railroad track and come east so that that water would come through by safety service. That water shouldn't come that way. That should be in the next one to the west as a natural one. You've got another situation, I don't know if did you ever get that trench closed up northwest of Aberdeen?
The Panama Canal, that's what I call it.
County Road, I don't know, about mile west.
No, that's still open.
That's still open.
There's no water in it as of right now.
But that's another watershed then, that is water that's coming that way, and it shouldn't be coming that way. Airport water, I think 80%, 90% of the airport water should be going east and not coming west. When you're pumping it in down there by the sewer plant, if that's flooding, if Foot Creek is flooding, and the Mog, that water will go south or west. And between 136th Street and 137th, there are 36-inch culverts under that highway, at least 4 of them, and that comes across to the west. And the city, I don't know, are you pumping water in the city out of the by Riverside Cemetery, that holding pond? Right on the west side?
Not at this point,
Not
no.
at this point. But we have too much water that's diverted from other areas. I think we could handle our own if we at least have our way. We had an agreement made, that this group made an agreement, and where is that metering, or where is that measuring stick by the sewer plant?
A measuring stick?
Well, there's my understanding was there's a place where they determined if the water got to a certain height, then you wouldn't turn the pumps on at the airport. And that's what your agreement is about.
I think it talks about water going over the roads. I don't know if it says anything in particular about elevations or
I thought it was at a point where, like where the Mog and Foot Creek meet. If
Well,
that's
which
what
is directly south of the wastewater plant property is where
Yeah.
they meet, sure.
So if that's flooding, you shouldn't, the agreement was that you couldn't turn the water pumps on unless you had got permission from the county commissioners.
Well, paragraph 4 says we need to determine that no roadways within the Moccasin Creek watershed are flooding. If they are, then the pumps don't get turned on. So, sounds like there are...
There's a lot of roads flooding in the Moccasin Creek area, well, in their floodplain.
Do we have any county down that way going under? Are they all township right now?
Yep.
And it doesn't say anything about county or township. It says determining that no roadways within the Moccasin Creek watershed are flooding. So if there are roads that are flooding, the pumps can't be turned on. I mean, that's what the agreement says.
How long has this small pump been on, Rich?
for about 2 weeks.
Does that gain anything, or would it
No.
gain? You just kind of maintain
It's
it?
1,000 gallons per minute. You know, we've got about 85 to 88 stormwater inlets feeding that pond through about 4.5 miles of buried piping throughout the airport. And we've got the Melgard Slough, which we call Melgard Slough over by the west gate. That is full. That's got two 750-gallon pumps that pump over into the large pump wet well. So we've got actually 2 ponds that are close to full. But the 700 or the 1,000 gallon per minute pump that operates off of floats. So both floats, I mean, of course, they're at the top of the wet well.
So right now, the issue isn't capacity, is that it's the livestock, or the
It's the
wildlife.
wildlife.
Is there any other options to rid the, I mean, other than the, you got...
We've been hazing those geese. You know, we've got trucks with flashing lights, sirens, horns. We've got pyrotechnics, screamers and bangers that we use as a last resort. We've got different rules that we have to abide by.
Geese really control a lot.
We just can't go out and start blasting away.
Did good with the pigeon population. Right in town, did that do the same thing?
They have to follow their wildlife hazard management plans. So they gotta first start with the hazing. Once that doesn't work, then they can start with depredation. Problem is with depredation, then you start bringing in, start having a bunch of dead geese floating out there, and then there's eagles and hawks and everything like that going out there feeding on them. I think one of the things is the volume of water that we're talking about, like in a night. It's 2 million gallons. That sounds like an enormous amount of water. And it's a lot of water, but it's essentially 2 water tanks full of the water tower up at the fairgrounds. That's essentially what it would do in a night, 2 of those. That's just to give you a kind of a visual of the volume of water.
But when the cup is plumb full and you put 1 drop in and it runs out and then it affects somebody down the line, you know, somebody has to move his cows or whatever, not a fun deal.
Well, the problem becomes, you know, protection of life. I would never forgive myself if a plane hit one of those geese and caused an accident, but yet on the other hand, I would never forgive myself if one of those roads running over an ambulance couldn't get to somebody that needed them. So we're kind of at a point where we need to make a decision. I don't know if there's a happy medium. You know, if we do it for one night and see what happens, it alleviates a little bit for you guys, see where the roads are with one night, because there's no easy answer on this. I mean, you're looking at it both ways.
Yeah. I think that is part of the agreement that we evaluated every day.
To report back not less than 24 hours.
Yep.
And we need to determine to make sure that those roads, is there another way into those farms that if something did happen, can they still get out? You know, is there an alternate route, and which ones is there not? Because those are the ones we need to watch real close.
Is this gonna be like that trench deal that's never been filled back in, you know, all this temporary stuff, turn it on for one night, it runs for 2 weeks? I mean, how are we gonna exactly be able to see, know, too? You know, I don't really feel like, we don't even know if we can trust on some of these things anymore. And how are we gonna even tell? We know what's coming north of us, we just heard what Dirk said. It sounds like an absolute disaster coming for us down. Well, everybody involved, the Brown County and every county between here and the Gulf of Mexico, the way it sounds. But, so I don't know.
The pumps have hour meters on them, so I mean, if we took Lake Scott out there, I mean, you can visually see how long the pumps ran. They have hour meters on them. In 5 years, that pumps ran 8 hours, and a majority of that's been testing and just yearly exercising for 20, 30 minutes. So they've never been kicked on for use for days since we put them in. So they do have hour meters on them, so that's something that the county can actually go out and look and see how long that pumps ran.
And maybe it's one of those things, does one night matter? Is it all or nothing? I mean, eventually that water's gotta go down. We're just saying bide us some time until some of the other gets out of the way before we send it, but maybe one or two doesn't matter to you. It's gotta be all or nothing, or?
If it was, I'm not asking for all or nothing, I'm asking for a controlled release. If it were all or nothing, we'd kick that pump on, and, per the FAA grant assurances, we're supposed to get that water off in 96 hours. That's our grant assurances.
96 hours from?
From the time we start.
They want the pond
They want
drain
the pond
dry
drain dry.
96 hours.
From the time it hits what point?
Time you make the determination it's necessary.
Exactly, yeah.
So what happens if you don't meet that? Do they take the grant away from you then, or what takes place?
I don't want to test that. I don't want to put the city in that situation.
So
I'm sure we'll get a couple of nasty letters.
Would they at some point in time ask you to shut the airport down for a few days if the planes couldn't come in?
That I don't know, and I don't think that we'd ever get into a situation where the planes couldn't come in. It's just the concern really is the wildlife management. And we'll have to come up with some clever hazing techniques, if the plane is coming in on the ILS runway, we're between the ILS runway and the pond during our hazing operations. And try to drive the geese west.
They're predictable to a point.
To a point. And back to the hazing and the lethal taking. So let's say we haze and haze and haze, and we decide, okay, now we've got to get the shotguns out, and we have to lethally take as many birds as we can get down within that time period. After we get that down, we have to document all of that, and then we have to start over with the hazing. We just can't go back out with shotguns. We have to go back and start hazing.
Well, if someone just doesn't leave with a shotgun, just stay out there for a few days and really make that extended type of deal.
I would be asking my guys to do something unethical, and I can't do that.
This migration is going to be a couple of weeks going to come, and geese are going to be here more all the time.
No, we've got state and federal permits that we have to abide by.
So is the Mog actually out of its banks right now, or is it?
I took pictures in 3 places just coming up 281 that it's totally out across fields, get around sour wines coming up to this
Do you have them on your phone?
buildings and stuff, yeah.
Does the federal government or the airport people have money to help repair township roads then if they're going to kick the pumps on?
Well, it's one of the things that Scott's monitoring is whether or not we're going to reach a point with enough damage to consider declaring.
This is just 281 back.
So we're documenting that
over here.
on an ongoing
And
basis.
that goes,
If it does reach that threshold, we absolutely will.
It cuts around and cuts
make money
the border and
available.
goes down.
It will request the declaration if we can document enough damage.
The other watersheds.
That'll be through FEMA, like we have in the
This is
past.
looking,
And that's being documented already. It's not something we're waiting for. It's something that he's taking care of on an ongoing basis.
logs coming right through here, and then it's just out.
How big is the pond?
128 acre feet, so it's about 41 million gallons.
Here's sour wine, just telling you.
Physical dimensions,
1,120 by
Water.
720 feet.
Off every side there of it.
So we've got it roughly on the airport with all the piping and the other low areas that we use for storage. We got around 160 acres of storage totally at the end.
It's full.
So that's taking a foot of water over a quarter section now.
So is that pond that's down on the, pretty much to the south, there's a holding pond down in there, a big holding pond, is that plumb full?
that's the one we're talking about.
That's where the
Yes.
pumps are?
Correct.
Okay.
What's the big pump run at?
5,000 GPM.
And the little one runs at 1,000 and it's been going for 2 weeks continuously right now.
That pump has 2,430 hours on it. The big pump has got 8.8 hours.
Barns and all that, so we're gonna start the, I mean, that's both sides of them there. You can get out, that's wrapping around and
Well, this doesn't just only impact the township or county roads, it's
Yeah.
impacting some of the some of the farm sites as
Like,
well.
if I had
And,
more time, I could've went south. I mean, I got a buddy that's got 150 cows standing on a peninsula about as wide as this room, and he's gonna get it now another direction also. We're just full, and we don't know where to go with these critters now.
And to declare a disaster to help the township or county roads, that's one thing, but it probably isn't gonna help these guys that are in trouble with where they're gonna take the cattle.
But that,
Never easy when it comes to water.
I think wait a week, come back next Monday, I mean next Tuesday. That's my suggestion. Do your hazing, do your work, come back next Tuesday, and we'll talk about it again. That's my suggestion.
Question is, predictability is tough, but next week, are we gonna be having more or less water coming from those other sources to this area?
Well, pretty much everything is slowing down right now, with the exception of the Elm getting to Columbia. Obviously, that slug's pushing through. The water coming out of Elm Lake is dropping. There's some water coming out of Willow Dam yet. There's some water to come down to James yet, but Richmond Lake coming out of there into Foot Creek is slowly tapering down. What's left for snow come this weekend when we hit 60, probably could push it back up again. Right now Moccasin Creek's that's all runoff. There hasn't been anything coming in there, with the exception of Foot Creek getting down there now. I'm guessing is dumping in there, or soon to be, where those two meet. But if the Elm starts dumping into the Moccasin Creek, we're going to have bigger fish to fry than 2 million gallons coming out of that silly pipe.
And no rain in the forecast, I didn't see.
What's that?
Is there rain in the forecast?
There's a little bit, but they're talking maybe 100 over the weekend. Nothing too detrimental, I don't think, as of right now. So.
Foot Creek begins up in the hills northwest of Leola. So if there's a lot of snow up there, there's still going to be a lot of water coming down through Foot Creek, and that area south here is going to be...
I was to the county line yesterday on 10, both north and south, probably 10, 12 miles, up to the Elm and the clear past Willow Dam on the west side, and there's snow in the valleys and the tree claims, but the flatland or the hilltop snow is gone. So are we going to see, initial surges? I don't think so. Can we see some small surges? I think that's probably, like I said, when we get to 60, we're going to start melting some of these bigger piles a little faster than what we have been. The snow, Darwin said, there's water running, we haven't seen it before. We're seeing that all over because of the snow. It's so compact, and there's so much ice underneath of it that it's pushing water different ways.
And it'll do that here, because once one spills over, it'll spill over to another one and another one, and I think that's part of Rich's proposal here, is to say that he doesn't want to run it 24 hours a day. He wants to try and minimize the impact, but still evacuate what he has in this window of time before it really warms up, and some of the potential may actually break loose, and we could actually see the mud coming back up from the south for a period of time.
Well, you're just adding to the problem that's already there now.
Well, absolutely. But how much are we adding?
Well, a drop in a glass that's plumb full.
I understand. I get it completely.
I think Dwayne's correct, though, about the roadways being flooded in the Moccasin watershed. If they're flooded, this agreement means nothing, because there's nothing you can do with the high volume pump. So if the water goes down, I think there could be a mutual agreement. If it's over the roads, then you're going to be violating this agreement if you start turning on the high volume pump. So I assume that was the point of this agreement. I don't know when it was drafted.
Come back next week.
5 years ago.
I think we need to live with the terms of the agreement. I mean, it is what it is. Everybody signed it when we signed it. And if water goes off the road, then we can reevaluate and turn on the pump at that time.
So there's no disagreement, we have water, we have roads
I haven't
underwater.
been down there, so I don't know.
You
Darwin,
guys have
you
seen
saw water over
township
the
roads
road.
downtown?
I drove through water this morning for a quarter of a mile, and when I got closer to the highway, there was a stretch that was probably 50 feet where there were, gullies cut it,
Starting to wash.
It was pretty good wash. I did not drive through that part because they were only on the south half of the road, so I was able to get through on the north half.
Going home would be a
I
different
don't plan on
story.
going home until about 2 or 3 this afternoon, and I can pretty well guarantee you I won't go that way. I hope I can if I come in from the west, I'll have to leave the car sit and walk a quarter of a mile.
I think it says somewhere in here too that the first meeting in April, that this agreement's supposed to be reviewed too.
It says during the first regularly scheduled meeting in April of the Brown
Yeah.
County Commission and Aberdeen City Council.
Or
Yes,
joint?
this would be, I assume they meant joint there, but
This has been the first year in the last 4 years that we haven't gotten a note saying there was no need, so,
So you haven't had much snow in the
No.
census has written up.
Was this taken up yesterday with city at all?
Yes, we visited with city council. We visited with the city council.
Did they have any comments on review-wise changing anything in it, or? Okay.
I suppose you could maybe do a joint meeting next week to discuss it as a group.
And then they, oh, no, they come here.
Monday or Tuesday, I don't know what schedule
No,
next
we
week.
go there.
This agreement allows a 1,000 gallon minute pump to run, correct?
It doesn't say anything about that, it just says high volume.
Yeah, this is just the high volume pump is all this
So
addresses.
the other one can run. Yep.
Yeah.
It's just the big one, but it's correct.
As much as I understand that, I mean, I understand the need to get rid of the wildlife, and I hope that the continued hazing is effective, but I think we need to abide by the agreement and push it down the road another week and reevaluate, and if things change by then, maybe we can turn on the pump and give you some relief.
I would ask that you go out and look at those roads on a daily basis to tell us where they're at so we can monitor them too.
I agree we should do that, because I think it says not less than every 24 hours.
Okay.
So we will, as a county,
And I can appreciate being flooded out of a home, and so I would want those roads open too.
Is there a joint
But
meeting
if
next
the
week
fact there,
scheduled?
if the water goes down and there's a period where we can pump where it doesn't impact the roadway, we'd like that opportunity
totally agree.
before it rains and creates a
Does it
situation
take
where
our
it
meeting
gets worse.
between the city and the county to actually, say the water goes down Friday or Saturday, and the roads come out of water down there, if that happens, does it take a meeting to allow them to turn their big pumps on?
Doesn't say anything about that. I mean, that could be an administrative decision, but honestly, there's not a right answer for it. If I'm the folks that it's going to affect, I'm going to want it to be a notice meeting where I can show up and voice my opinion, but you can make an administrative decision, I guess, since it's an emergency situation. That would be something we'd have to talk to the city about.
Well, naturally, we wouldn't turn the pumps on if the roads are still underwater, but, you know, the way this water moves in 3-4 days, things can change a bunch in 3-4 days, and then they're sitting another 3 or 4 days waiting for next Tuesday to happen. I guess that's kind of where I'm going with that, is there anywhere in between that? Do we have to wait till next Tuesday, or can a decision made on Saturday, or?
What I would probably do, since you're required to do a 24-hour notice for an open meeting, is publish that. If you have to wait 26 hours to flip a pump on, at least you're having a meeting between the city and the county at the same time, and then the interested parties can show up and voice their concerns, and the bodies could vote and flip a pump on if they need to. That agreement can be changed, it just needs to be changed in a joint meeting in the first meeting in April. But I would notice it properly so everyone who gets flooded out can be there to say they don't want you to turn the pumps on.
It's kind of ironic that we're here the first part of April.
Yeah, it is.
Unfortunately, predictable. maybe next week, just to be safe, we do it as a joint meeting, either Monday or Tuesday, but make sure it gets noticed properly that this issue is going to come up. And then in the meantime, if something really bad happens, I guess, well, something good happens, the water goes down on the road, but there's an emergency at the airport, I'd notice it and have a hearing within the 24 hours.
I guess that was one of my concerns too, is the fact that we knew that the city folks were coming in, but the folks that could be impacted by it.
I think yesterday it was like the 22-hour mark, so we couldn't get it noticed properly. Otherwise, this would have been on the agenda.
Yeah, we had met with Gary late, was it morning? Or
Yeah, it was like 9:30, 9:45.
About an hour.
It's a dynamic situation, it continues to change.
Scott, can we ask your office to monitor the roads in that area so that we can determine if water does go off the road and goes down, we can maybe hold an emergency meeting if necessary?
Sure, yeah, I'll work with Dirk here and probably Rob,
Yep.
and we'll come up with a game plan.
Keep in contact with these folks too.
Come down to take you around or show you what we're seeing down there.
If you guys determine you'd prefer to meet jointly Monday or Tuesday, either one, let us know.
Okay.
Well, the issue really becomes, we couldn't make a decision anyway, because it was not on our agenda. We can discuss it, but we were not able to make a decision without a 24-hour notice, so that kind of ties our hands to Dave making the decision whether we want to turn the pump on or not, because the way I understand the statute, you would have had to notice this to be able to make a commission decision.
But I
There's
guess
a lot of legalities there. Like I said, it could be an administrative decision, so I'm not saying you actually have to notice it, but I think that's probably what's best. If I lived in that area, I'd want to have an opportunity to show up and be heard. I think the bigger issue is if there's water over the roads, you can't change it. And then if there isn't water on the roads, you can change the agreement if you need to. Even if there's water over the road, you can change the agreement, but it needs to be done at the first joint meeting in April. We're not there yet.
Yeah, the agreement isn't very clear.
No.
And you could argue what's an emergency flooding situation, because the first bullet on the second page, it says Brown County Commissioners will work jointly with the council during emergency flooding situations within the ICS structure to make mutually beneficial decisions. So to me, that could be, if it's a disaster and the pump means something life or death, you have the option. You could interpret it that way, I would guess.
And I agree with Rachel, if something couldn't be, if you couldn't wait 24 hours to make that decision, I think that clause would probably allow you to put the pump on if you agreed. But if you can wait 24 hours, I think you notice it. It's not going to cost much money to put some notice up on your buildings and show up as a group to meet real quick.
Sounds good.
Are there any runways that are potentially to be flooded?
No.
Could be, they're all high enough that there wouldn't be any flooding on that.
Everything's working exactly like it should. We still have some capacity for storage. Like I said, the biggest issue is the wildlife issue. And as Rich mentioned, getting that thing pumped down in 96 hours is important to the Office of Aeronautics, to the FAA, obviously to the city. But everything's working like it should. Absolutely.
I think when that agreement was written up, we heard that same type of a comment, but I thought at that time they said there is some flexibility in that. When your water level, your pond is...
I think the 96 hours was...
The 96, the standard FAA requirement is 48 hours, which would have required that pump to be just enormous. That would have been about 17,000 gallon per minute. And that's not the issue, it's the horsepower that it takes to run it, and then the power to kick it on would be just astronomical. Even with variable frequency drives to ramp it up slowly, it still takes a ton of power to kick a pump that size on.
Being you're in official session, do you want to set a tentative time frame, or we'll go back and get my governing body to do the proper announcement where we can have a joint meeting next week?
I'm okay if we come to your place on Monday. That works for me.
We'll schedule a quorum.
Okay. 5:30 Monday?
Sure.
All right.
First one, no problem.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no,
Thanks for coming over.
no, we do not want to put the traveling public in peril unnecessarily.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
If
other
you want to impact any nature down the stream.
Tough deal.
Sarah, do you have
Tough deal.
a few things?
I do.
Okay, we'll move on to them.
Okay. Approve the general meeting minutes from March 26th.
Move it.
Second.
Moved by Kempley, second by Piper, to approve the general minutes from March 22nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Claims and payroll.
Move.
I'll second it, but I've got a question that I noticed, that in some cases there's like 6% for, retirement, in some cases there's 8%.
Yeah, the sheriff's department, for example, is on 8%. Yeah, and that's a state law, that
Okay.
your public safety
Okay.
holds at a higher rate, yeah.
Went in the wrong profession.
Yeah.
I was already collecting, what are you talking about?
I just want to make sure there's enough going in there so I keep getting it.
You made the motion, Wayne, right?
Yes.
Okay. Motion by Sutton, second by Piper. All in favor, approve claims and payroll?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
HR report.
Before you vote on that, we have one addition to that. We'd like to add that our museum director is retiring at the end of June, so we'd like to get started on getting that job announcement out, and so there's some overlap time there for her to work with that person, especially during budget time and things. So if we could add that amendment, I'd appreciate that.
To the HR report.
Just are we authorizing
Acknowledging the
that, or just-
resignation of her at the end of June, June
27th.
28th, Friday the 28th, and requesting to fill vacancy.
Is there,
What if we say no?
yeah, maybe we want to wait a week.
And you don't want a
I'm just kidding.
museum?
I'm not saying we don't want the museum, but the electrician, is there anybody in there that would be?
Apparently, that's not from what I was told.
Let's put, can we wait on that authorizing advertising for 1 week and do the acknowledgement today?
Sure, I think the issue is just that if you want 4 weeks, we pretty much need, if we're going to announce for 2 weeks and then they might have a 2-3 week notice, you're going to be pushing that every week we wait, basically.
Because it's June, what's her last day?
June 28th. So, I mean, you figure you're closing the 22nd, having interviews once either that week or this week, and then, by the time you get that done and you have a 2 week notice, you're going to be, the goal is to try and have someone started by June 3rd if possible.
You can throw it in there, I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
We can advertise for it, we can decide, once the advertising, what we get for applications. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to accept all applications.
Exactly.
Sounds good, move it.
Second.
Moved by Kempley, second by Sutton, to approve the HR report with an amendment of acknowledging resignation of the museum director June 28th and advertise to fill vacancy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Fair contract. 4-H.
Move. Second.
Moved by Sutton, second by Weiss, to approve fair contracts. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I got.
The only other thing is on the ATM, as a commission, do we want to have it go to ARC, or do we want to continue to have payments made into the auditor? If they bill us for the paychecks for the ATM, they're going to start deducting $2.95 per check they write us, right?
Yeah, we get we get our money from the ATM, and now it's going to be $2.95 charged when it sends a check, but it's free with the ACH deposit. Both the auditor and treasurer's office are fine with the ACH deposit, they just want you to decide. There was a report in there that shows what we got monthly in the deposits. It's not significant if we had a low volume month, that $2.95 could wipe us out. But
Well, to save $2.95 a month, just
Yeah.
have it be an ACH deposit. That way we won't get billed anything additional.
so if you're okay with it, we'll just get the paperwork with them and get that started.
It's secure and it's the way we do things now.
Yep.
Okay. Gary, you have anything?
Yeah, a couple quick things. City of Hackla decided not to take the Brown County property, so I don't know how you want to move forward on that. Basically, they just thought that was too much to pay the back taxes and then to go through the process of reselling to where it's worth it to them, so.
Is this the one with the trailer house sitting on it?
Yes.
Yep. You want
If
it?
you want to move forward on advertising to go to auction again, or whatever you want to do with it.
Let's sell it.
Auction or sealed bid? Sealed bid, we don't have
We
to
sure don't want
advertise.
Vic to do that, do we?
What's that?
We're not gonna hire Vic to do that one, are we? Because
No,
wouldn't.
that wasn't the plan, no.
Not on that one.
It's just a bare lot.
I would recommend, we have a minimum bid of $500 and the auditor's office just auctions off.
Then do it.
I would say,
Yep.
auction it.
City may be interested then.
Apparently, there's some water issues too with that lot,
Okay.
so that's why.
So do we need to make a motion to present?
Advertise that auction.
Advertise to.
I would move that.
Second.
Moved by Packard, second by Sutton to advertise the Heckler lots.
Quick question prior to voting. If a municipality or government body wins that and gets it, they don't have to put it on the tax rolls?
Do we want to put a minimum bid of 1,000 instead of 500? I mean,
It's 2 lots, right?
it's worth
Recover a little bit of the $5,000 back taxes.
1,500, isn't
Or is
it?
it 1,500? Oh, why did I think it was 5,000?
I think we should put a minimum of 1,000 myself.
So whatever you guys want for the minimum.
1,581.42.
Yeah, let's do
Why don't you put 1,000 or best offer? That way you kinda
Well,
got
a minimum of 1,000.
Yeah.
I mean, the minimum bid is 1,000.
Yeah. Is that in the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, we have the motion and a second.
You okay with that, Dennis?
Yeah,
You
that's
made the
fine.
motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I'd like to authorize the chair to sign the appointment of the second authorized agent for SDRS, for Erica.
Okay.
Move. Second.
Moved by Weiss, second by Sutton to authorize chair to sign the South Dakota retirement for Erica, our new HR department. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
We have no commercial appraisers in Aberdeen, so we have to go out of town to have someone appraise the Millen building. And the closest one is out of Watertown. His name's Adam Lalem, and he gave me a quote of $4,200 to be done by the 3rd week of May. The one out in Rapid City that was recommended is tied up for months. The one in Sioux Falls is tied up for a while, but he's going to actually help Adam with a piece of it, so if that works for everyone, I'll have him draw up an official quote for next Tuesday.
Hard to believe a community this size doesn't have a commercial
Yeah,
appraiser.
they're all residential,
So
so.
now, if we do the commercial appraisal, is it my understanding that appraisal is only good for 6 months after the appraisal's done?
Right.
Are we comfortable with making sure we're gonna have
By
everything
mid-
squared away?
Yeah, by 3rd week of May, hopefully, if you're moving people in mid-April, hopefully, but, you know, you got 6 months from there. So, yeah,
that's what I
that's a
wondered
good question, though.
If we
That's
jump the
why I
gun
asked.
here, if we don't wanna spend $4,200 to find out our 6 months expires before we,
Well, maybe we shouldn't activate, or have them do it until the 1st of June, schedule it to have it.
It's up to you. That-
Appraisal
I
the 1st
don't-
of June, that'd give us...
We can try and hold them for later if possible.
well, even May 1st, we would know in April whether we got everybody out of there and where everybody's at, if that's the
Is there
plan.
really all that much in there right now, other than weed and pest and what else?
24/7.
24/17 court and welfare.
And Judy said the back garage is full of stuff
Yeah,
still. We gotta find a
That
spot
would
for
all
it.
have
gotta
to
be
be
moved
moved
out.
out too.
A nice landfill 8 miles east or west of
You
here.
got a
I
spot
can
for it.
certainly tell them
You
that
can get there.
we're in not as big a
There's water
hurry.
over the road.
I think
Not
May
yet.
protects us for knowing what we're doing with in April. Everybody's out of there in April and, you know, I just don't wanna run into snags and moving somebody somewhere and all of a sudden we're 2 months
We
later.
really,
and-
we get 24/7 someplace else in the month of April?
You got 6 months.
We decided to
Yeah,
remodel
yeah,
the blue building
you'd have
to
6
accommodate us,
months.
so.
Can they do that in a month?
Good question.
But we have 6 months to sell it too, so.
And then on top of that, you don't have to schedule the bids or auction or whatever for however long, you know.
Okay.
Well, it's gonna take 2 to 3 months to actually do it, to make the report, so.
Yeah, I can certainly tell them
Well,
we can
it's-
hold off for a little bit and just get it, keep us on the schedule.
Well,
They don't wanna
if you call
push it
them,
too
what is
far
the schedule?
until next
Maybe they
winter.
can't get to us in May until May anyway, so then it would work out fine. I mean, that's,
He said he could have it tentatively done if he started next week by the 3rd week in May,
well, that's probably fine. That's,
so.
Yeah, but that's almost June 1st already.
Exactly.
So,
that hinges on when they can get to it, so if that's the
Yeah,
case.
that was my thought. that-
the only
that
game
he
in
could
town
get
there
it-
just take him up on
I
his
mean, he'd
offer
have the
to it.
report and everything.
That gets us through the end of the year.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
All right, do it.
all right, sounds good.
Anything else?
And then, just wanted to let you know that we got our quote for Blue Cross Blue Shield. It looks like we're looking at a 2.44% increase, so we'll get a couple other quotes just to keep base, but,
Not bad at all.
but yeah, that was good news, so. All right, thanks.
Chris, do you have anything for us?
I just wanted to, got caught up in moving snow and flooding, and I didn't do my annual review, so I was just gonna pop in since I was up here, see if you want to schedule that for next week, Gary. I didn't
Okay.
know what anybody had going on. I'll get you my paperwork here in the next day or two,
Sounds good.
and we'll do it next week.
After all, they have equalization starting next week, so
I think that first meeting should go pretty quick.
we'll figure it out.
Whatever.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Sounds good.
All right. I would make a motion to go into executive session for legal, please.
I'd like to add personnel.
We have a motion by Sutton and a second by Weiss to go into executive personnel and legal. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are in executive. We are out of exec, no action as a result.
Okay.
Scott, you have something for us?
No.
Okay.
I'm just here for the working session.
We had a meeting or something?
Yeah.
Yep.
A work session, yeah.
For the
So,
relocation.
do we need to be live for that? You want to be live?
No.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, second.
Moved by Weiss, second by Sutton to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are
Well, I
adjourned.
had,